Hello, Taurus. Welcome to your July 2016 love reading. It's Serena here, shuffling the cards. See? Perfect example. What I do is when I get a reversed card like I got here, I look at the bottom of the deck and it was upside down. So I just turned the deck right side up, left that, at the bottom, picked from the top, and got a card that was upright. Then the next card was reversed again. So you can see, and I think I turned it over for this one, that some things are meant to be and some messages are meant to come through. Oh, let me cut this and pick a card from the middle for the outcome. I was so busy. I got another sign that got that as the outcome. Now, just by the nature of this, I feel like this is going to be kind of an important month for you. This is the Morgan Greer deck. Sometimes I get people asking which one it is. You can see the back side of this. I love that, just for that alone. But I do like the colors and the artwork. Okay, let me just take this in for a second. Some of you may have a water sign person in your life. I'm thinking specifically a Pisces individual. It's funny that this card has a fish jumping out of the cup, because it's like, that's pretty in your face Pisces imagery. However, we could extend it to Cancer as well as Scorpio. But because of what the Page of Cups stands for, which is a naive sort of person, the pages can be even literal children. But if it's not a child, it could be an adult who has a childish or childlike view of life, where they kind of are very gullible. They take things at face value. They are easily misled. They're easily deceived. It's possible that for some of you, this is you. And it has caused you to now have a crisis in faith, because you were dealing with somebody who was less than honorable. And that person could be any sign. But if this is the other person, this can also be the case, because even if that person has some good qualities, if this person is gullible and is easily deceived, they can bring that problematic energy into your life and wreak havoc on your life. So it really doesn't matter. It would depend on the individual. One of the reasons why sometimes I gravitate more towards astrology is because it seems more well defined. With the tarot, it's so symbolic, and especially when you don't know the particular person, that you say it could be this, it could be that, and then that makes people think, oh, well, she's saying it can be just about anything. But the 1-2 punch is that this is you now, or in July, and the recent past was this. And yeah, to tell you the truth, it could be that this is you. And you don't, literally have to have all of this, Piscean energy in order to be misled. People of every sign are misled sometimes. And when I look at astrological charts, if I see an afflicted Neptune, if I see hard aspects to Neptune, which I do quite often, especially with, well, it could be the sun, the moon, or even Mercury and Venus to Neptune. These tend to distort reality, and people tend to project what they want to, see what they want to in another person or another situation. And so if this is you, I would say to you, what exactly did this person represent themselves to be? Or how did they act within the relationship? Because a lot of times when you reflect on that, you can see that there were many red flags, but you chose not to look at them because you wanted it to be how you wanted it to be. And I'm not saying that to say, oh, well, you brought it on yourself. I'm just trying to put it a little bit more in your corner so that you can have a more, how shall I say, empowered view of the situation. Because otherwise you're going to be saying, poor me, I'm the victim, this person did me wrong. And it will be a mantra that you will say. You might change faces, but it'll be the same mantra until you decide to take the reins of your own life and see the situation for what it really is. If this was another person, then it might have been a case of just their own chaos intermingling with your life and causing you to go, oh, I thought this person was a keeper. But no, they're a little bit too scattered, or too, well, not scattered, but they're too naive for me to deal with, because they don't see life in the same way I do. And the Page of Cups can be very psychic, but even psychic people can fall into the delusion game because they are prone to fantasy just by the nature of having that psychic gift. They don't want to see the world as it is. They want to visit other realms or what have you. So that can make it very problematic for them to actually face a situation square on, because it's having to see life in its most mundane sort of ways, and they would rather see it in its most idealistic way. The higher perspective is the Hermit card in reverse. Perfect to describe, to give you a message of what happened, what went wrong. And the message is from Spirit is, you didn't go within. You were too much in the world. And that led to all of this mess. And by the way, when I say this mess, that's because that's what this reading is supposed to be for. For people who are not having smooth sailing in their relationship. Or for people who are single but find themselves in relationships over and over again that tend to end up not so hot. So the point is that whatever person you are, it should be somebody who is unsatisfied with what you currently have. If you're happy in your relationship, then you have no reason to be looking at this in the first place, because otherwise you're anticipating the worst. And that's not a good mindset either. It should be, if you're having problems and you want to find a solution, then you seek out help for that, or, even if it's as little as inspiration. But, if you're in a great relationship, but you're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, then you have to question your own belief system. And how does that manifest for you? Because, if you're planning for disaster, you might actually get it. So you might not want to think like that. And right when I said that, I saw in the corner of my eye this card, speaking of disaster. But this doesn't have to be disaster. This is what's crossing you, the Tower card. Now, this could have been in the recent past as well. It could be related to this card, where there was something that was revealed, some kind of a jolting revelation, a situation that you did not expect. Now it could be something good. Maybe you fell in love at first sight with somebody else, and that's what's causing the rift in this relationship up here. But let's say that this is connected to the Tower card. Maybe you did find out that your partner was cheating on you. The Tower as the challenge card, people would say, well, no, duh, of course it's a challenge if something that dramatic happens to you. But it's not so much that, it's how you deal with the knowledge that this thing has happened. And my feeling is for some Taurians, maybe even the majority who would find themselves in this sort of situation, is that you might conclude that you're going to cling to the relationship anyhow. And I say this because you're a fixed sign. Fixed signs tend to preserve the status quo. They don't like change. And even if something bad has happened, I could totally see a Taurian, let's say you know who your rival is, if it was a situation of infidelity, and going after that person and harassing that person, or at least having animosity towards that person, and totally, keeping your spouse or your partner as the innocent one, as the person that you covet. And there's nothing wrong with staying with somebody who has betrayed you. What I'm saying is that when you look at it in such a light because you don't want to face the severity of the situation, then you have to own the outcome, because the possibility is that this will happen again. It's also possible that, you may not even know the half of it. If you can't trust somebody to be honest about going with somebody else, who knows what else they're not telling you about. So turning a blind eye is not necessarily the best plan, and especially not obsessing about the other person and saying, oh, they're in the wrong, and worrying about them. You should hold your partner accountable. That's the person who did it. Now, this may have nothing to do with romance. This may have to do with some other matter that caused some sort of break or unpleasant discovery of. And whatever happened, it requires you to see the situation as it is, and not in this rarefied light that, absolves the other person of any responsibility. What is in your favor for actions to take and attitudes to have is the Eight of Cups. And this is about leaving. This is about, now this is an emotional thing. If you're not feeling it, why are you there? And sometimes it boils down to financial security, especially for a Taurus person. You are an earth sign at the end of the day, and you like to spend money. You like to buy things. You rule the second house of luxury items. So some of you are spendthrifts, and maybe you're with somebody who makes a good living, and you're comparing that lifestyle to you having to go on your own and live by your own means. And you're like, no, I don't think so. Even if you don't have children to support, you might still feel this way. And you know what? That is your prerogative. But I'll tell you, man, if you live a life just on the surface and, engage in shopping, retail therapy all the time, I think that the emptiness will only increase, because things ultimately have a satiation point, because they're material things. They cannot fully satisfy anybody. It's so interesting because the advice is the King of Wands, and this dovetails with exactly what I was going to say, which is about enthusiasm, a zest for life. And the wands relate to having a passion. The king is the master of that in the worldly sense. This is a double masculine energy. So it's somebody who is in the world and engaging in passions that around involve other people. You know, he's not just being self-indulgent and engaging in personal indulgences. This is like your dharma, you know, what you came here to do. Let's say that you are some sort of artist, which wouldn't be a stretch since you are ruled by Venus. And let's say it's just a hobby, but let's say you have a hobby of painting and you're really good at it. And you decide to put that aside because you want to make even more money and you want to work overtime and you don't have time to paint and to pursue a career in corporate America. Well, maybe you will add to your bank account, but what will you add to your passion in life? Will you feel that your soul is really satisfied? And the same applies to relationships. So if you are someone who is being very pragmatic and looking at it in dollars and cents, maybe you will have a nice big bank account and financial security. But emotionally, will you be left high and dry, like this card represents? Will you be yearning for something more? Which the Eight of Cups is all about. The Eight of Cups is about, it could be about, you know, embarking on a spiritual journey. A lot of times I feel like these things go in tandem, where somebody is disillusioned with the way they're living in a broad sense. They're disillusioned with their significant relationship. They're disillusioned with their career. They're disillusioned with their circle of friends, maybe even their family. They feel like they're living a lie, and they go off and they do something that really brings them a sense of who they really are. I just thought of that book, Eat, Pray, Love. You know, it's not enough to have a nice life on paper where everyone can see it, you know, like a Facebook profile, where you have pictures of your happiest moments, pictures of all the foreign lands that you've traveled, and yet inside you feel empty. And this is a person who is a master of their passion, and they're going after it. They're going after their passion for another person, and it's not just lust. It's something more. And Taurus, unfortunately, and I am a Taurus rising, so believe me, it's not something outside of myself that I say this. Sometimes we get in a rut, being a fixed sign, being an earth sign, and a fixed earth sign. You know, there's this reptilian, thing of, just doing the same thing over and over again. And just being like self-indulgent, really just being happy with simple pleasures. And that's actually a beautiful thing. It can be when it's not excessive, when it's being done in an honorable way, in a way that honors your soul's mission. For sure, you should not deny yourself any pleasures in life. I'm not saying that at all. The Buddha, who actually, I think some people think was a Taurus, he was born in opulence. And so he wanted to see, what life had to offer. And he thought that he had to starve and do all these extreme things to be a spiritual person. And he ended up with the middle path because there was temperance. And I didn't pull that card for you, but that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about deprivation as a road to enlightenment. I'm just talking about balance, and also being balance in the spiritual, not just the physical. And really, if nothing else, acknowledging that there's something more to life than just the pleasures of the flesh. And this this is about, I mean, the wands can always relate to physical passion, but the wands also relate to your creativity, to, your enthusiasm, your zest for living. And that transcends any specific occupation or, state of mind that you're in, or, educational level, or anything external or fleeting. It's just something that is a constant. And that's what we talk about with spirituality, is that there's an equanimity. There's something that is not dependent on these external events for you to feel a sense of peace. The outcome is the Fool card, and I love this card so much. Traveling light, having a sense of adventure. The Zero card, the unknown quantity. Where you're going to go, who you're going to meet, but being open to whatever happens, not having a narrow, rigid point of view. Another thing that Taurians have to work with, they have to open up to possibilities and not kind of fall into that rut or that pattern of that habitual preferences. Expansion. That's what life is all about, and that's what the Fool card represents, overall, I think. And having a sense of passion and adventure, to be able to explore new territory, new people, I think of that song by the Dixie Chicks, Wide Open Spaces. Trying to transcend your little world, and that's where you might meet the person of your dreams. Now, for those of you who want to know what this person's sign is, well, the future is not set in stone, so I don't operate that way. But I will say that there might be a fire sign individual. And it could be somebody in a position of authority who is, has people under him at his position. Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Again, when I do my predictions, I predict more of the Aries and the Leo. Aries because it's a sign next to you, and Leo because it forms a square with you. However, I do know a couple where one is a Taurus and one is a Sagittarius, and they've been married for many years. So who am I to say what works and what doesn't? That's not up for me to say. But it could be that that's the person that you should pursue, and maybe you're with a water sign and you have to go from that person. Even though I think overall the water, the cups, and the pentacles or the earth signs are the most compatible, or more compatible than earth and fire. But sometimes those earth and fire situations can work because the earth person can ground the fire person, who is so full of ideas and excitement, but lacks the perseverance sometimes, or the organization, the the foresight or the depth of what they're doing. They just kind of get, thrown into a frenzy, and then they don't really flesh it out. I would say specifically an Aries individual, if you're involved with an Aries, sometimes they tend to be a little bit, into that starting mode. They're catalysts, but then they can peter out. So if you're dealing with that person in a business, for instance, you would be more of the person who would handle the details, or the the day-to-day situation, and that person would be more of the idea person and the energy person, the person who brings the passion to whatever it is that they're doing. But that this might just relate to anybody who is in position of authority. Maybe you're involved with your boss, and I know that some of I've gotten a couple of people telling me that that has happened, but it could just be you being an authority of your own life and taking charge. That's what the king represents, taking charge too. And taking charge of your passions, not allowing them to dissipate because you have a need for security. I'm not talking about that you should throw caution to the wind completely. I'm talking about just being too conservative on the other end, where you're just clinging to the known. And this is all about the unknown. And that's something to embrace sometimes in order to really, make that shift. And this sometimes will make it for you if you don't make it for yourself. So Taurus, I hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like a personalized reading, please click on the link below. I have different types. I have love, I have career, I have combos, I have, natal chart interpretations. Otherwise, have a wonderful month of July for your love. Bye.